Wheel. Okay. Oh, we good? Hello, everybody. How are you all doing today? Wow. Yeah, well, my name is Francisco Martin. Thank you, Ario, for introducing me. I'm going to be talking today about working with customers. So we're going to be talking about who are customers, things that I have personally learned working with customers, and how you can have a successful relationship with your customer. But before, a little bit about myself. There we go. Who am I? As I've said, I'm Francisco Martin. I'm a gameplay engineer, designer on the side sometimes. I've worked on multiple companies, both indie and corporate. So I've worked with Subdream Studios, making a Galaga Fever game for Bandai Namco. I've worked with corporate, with Wizards of the Coast, working on Magic Arena. And we recently-ish announced a game that I worked on called Slime Core by Genpop Interactive, which is now on pre-alpha playtest if you would like to join that. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about customers. Who here has worked with customers? Good, a lot of people. And a lot of people have their hands down, so hey, that's great. We're gonna learn who are customers, what do they do, and how you can have a successful relationship with them. So, who is a customer? Customer is somebody who has the final word on your project. Project is a very nebulous term here. It could be a feature, it could be a full-on project, like a full title. It could be something that you're contracted to do. Maybe you're asked to do, hey, do the back end for me, and they're your customer. But the very important thing about customers is that everybody must be clear who the customer is. And this could be a publisher, it could be yourself if you are in an indie environment, it could be an internal team within your company. But it's very important to do this because it grants ownership to this customer to get an understanding as to who has the final say. If you do not know who your customer is, I do implore you to find out who it is. One of my very early failures as a developer was that I worked with somebody who I thought was my customer, and it ended up that their boss was our customer. So we worked for a month and a half on a project, and they ended up showing it to their boss, and the boss says, I hate this. This is not the direction I want this at all. And we lost a month and a half of work. So this is a warning. If you're working for someone or another team, make sure you know who is the person who is supposed to be having the final say, who is your customer. So, what are you gonna do when you're talking to this customer? You're gonna be setting expectations, and there's multiple tools you can use to set expectations. One of them is documentation. We all love documentation, right folks? Everybody loves writing it, and everybody reads them, of course, and all those things. But no, here it is a very important. It is essentially your pseudo contract. It's your contract within the contract. You might have a contract with somebody to render some services for some amount of time, but beyond that, you also need some kind of list to actually determine these are the things that we're going to be working on this sprint. These are the things that we're going to be delivering by next week, and we're going to be demoing. A really cool tool that I use a lot, and because I'm an engineer and I'm a nerd, I actually use this outside of work, are Moscows. So Moscows is an acronym for must, should, could, and won't. Must being things that the thing needs right now to actually prove that this is gonna work. Shoulds are things that usually cede to the must, but long term should be in the game. Coulds are nice to have, but if there's some technical limitations, some time restraints, you're just gonna remove it. And won'ts are the negative space, right? Like things that you have explored and thought about that you have very purposely said, we are not gonna be doing this, which is very helpful because it allows you to know what path not to take. I got to the point where I use Moscows in everyday life. I was looking for a new apartment, and I was looking for what is important to me in a new apartment, and I made a Moscow, because yeah. And minimal viable product, MVP, which I'm sure that a lot of you know about, but if you don't know, they are essentially the key features that prove your main loop. And you're gonna be making this as early as possible, showing it off as early as possible to make sure that your game is fun. This is a very old video at this point, so it's kind of dating me, by Extra Credits about the minimum viable product about Mario. So it was essentially like, okay, what is the MVP for Mario? Well, you need jumping, obstacle courses, that's it. You don't need anything else. That is technically all that Mario is. After that, you can get more involved in making more iterations and adding more stuff. But for the minimal viable product, you just want to make sure, are these small pieces fun? Okay, next. So why is it important? There's two major reasons why setting expectations is very important. Number one, customers become invested. An invested customer is somebody who is going to be excited for your work. They're going to come back for the demo and be like, oh, I'm so excited to see this thing that we talked about 2 weeks ago. Developers become independent. Myself, I know as an individual contributor, I love when the expectations of me are well defined, when the pillars of the game are well defined, so that whenever there are edge cases, which will come up, I can take the initiative and be like, actually, I think I know what we're going for. I'm going to make this design decision for now, write it a little note, send it to the designers, but I don't need to sit around, wait for the customer, wait for somebody else to actually take the initiative. So you get these two nice bonuses when you set expectations. So I mentioned that the customer comes in, you set expectations with them, they disappear for a sprint or whatnot. And what is the next step? We're gonna schedule some demos. We're gonna get them involved. So during the scheduling demo process, you're gonna give them a play opportunity. They're gonna get to play. They're gonna get to tell you, hey, this is the good stuff, this is the bad stuff. I already hear some people laughing at the video that is coming up. So it's a good time to analyze feedback, look at that project spec, update the project spec as needed. And why is it important? Well, if you haven't seen this video, it's a great TikTok video in which a designer made this beautiful object in whole game, and it's like, okay, awesome. The cube goes into the square hole, the rectangle goes into the square hole. Okay, this is awesome. I don't know, remember what the next thing is. The other rectangle, it goes in. This is longer than I expected. The square hole, yeah, and everything goes in the square hole because, hey, some things might seem really obvious and cool on paper, but when you play test it, you realize, oh, players are just very smart and will do whatever they want. So yeah, make sure to schedule those demos. Another good important reason to schedule demos is that you need to make sure that the design is not just fun, but also aligned with your customer's project's goal. A game that is super fun, super designed, like beautiful and everything that your customer does not like is a failed project, right? Like if you make a really fun game, at the end of the day, somebody tells you, hey, this is not what I want, then it's not what they want. So yeah, very important. So, few lessons learned. This is going to be a bit of a lightning round of stuff that I have learned. I have things that I have either failed at or realized so that you can get this knowledge and kick butt. Thing number one, definitions are not universal. Whenever you're talking with someone and they keep repeating a word over and over again, instead of assuming, oh, I know what that is, I don't need to ask them about it, ask them about it. Write it down. What do you mean by, for example, arcade? When I was working with Bandai Namco, they asked for, hey, we want an arcade experience. And so what did we do? We made Galaga. We made a really cool logarithmic difficulty game in which technically you can play forever, but it would kick you out after 5 minutes. It had scoring, 3 lives, great, awesome. But when we showed it to them, they're like, no, that's not the arcade that we want. When we talk about arcades in Japan, we talk more like experiences, more like Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin over here, which dates me a bit because I think that ride does not exist anymore. Now it's like Woody's Wonderful World or something, I don't know. Next thing that I've learned, learning to listen. So Mark Rosewater, head designer at Magic, once said, players are really good at pointing out problems, but not necessarily good at pointing out solutions. And that is a very key thing. A lot of times, players will come up to you, say, hey, I had an issue with this, I think you should do X. And sometimes they're right, but take it with a grain of salt. It might be that there is some bigger core issue underlying. Ask them a lot of questions. Make sure that you understand what they're actually complaining about. Plays devil's advocate, but make sure that they know that you're playing devil's advocate. Don't be frustrating and be saying no to everything. Just make it so that, hey, I think we're all in agreement here, but let's look at it from another angle to see what the core issue is. I think there's a great story from Bungie Studios back in the day when they were making one of the Halo games. All the players that play tested it kept on complaining that, oh, the AI is too dumb. The AI needs to become better. The game's too easy, the AI. So they took a long time. They were working a long time to make the AI smarter, to make the decision tree better, all these different things. And every time the playtesters would come back and say, yeah, it's too easy. The AI is too dumb. The AI is too dumb. And what happened was that a designer was like, you know what? I'm going to take a shot in the dark, and I'm going to increase everybody's health by 10%. And immediately everybody was like, oh, the AI is perfect right now. That's amazing. Like they think they're good. And so sometimes when players are telling you solutions, take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes they're right though, so don't dismiss it out of hand. Two more, real quick. Learning to say no. So customers will always want more with the same number of resources. It's very normal. You want more bang for your buck. Use the project spec to make sure that you prevent feature creep. You said, hey, we promised to this, so we are going to be doing this. At the same time, I do think that you should employ a tactic of preventing giving a hard no. What do I mean by this? Instead of whenever a client or a customer comes to you and say, hey, can you add, is it easy to add a level? And you're like, well, no. Instead of saying just no straight up, you can be like, well, we could do that, but then we need to remove these things from the project spec. Essentially, what that does is that you're putting the ball back on their court. You're not saying no. You're giving them the information so that they decide whether that's a real no, or maybe they do decide that they want to change the spec. But yeah, very important to do that. Finally, customer wants bad ideas. You're working with someone and you're designing a game for them, and they keep giving you an idea over and over again that you're in your head are saying that's not going to work, whether it be for technical reasons or it's not fun or anything like that. So what do you do there? A few things you can do. Implement a fail-fast approach. Make sure that you're prototyping, don't code for like long range or don't develop for robustness. Make it more prototyping. Make it more kind of like an MVP within the game of like for a specific feature. Just so that way we can test it out earlier to fail fast if it actually isn't fun and not a good idea. Raise demo frequencies. This is more important for whenever the customer isn't within the company. It's more like outside and they need to be brought in for more meetings. Log hours separately. So whenever you're doing something that you have commented saying, hey, I'm not sure that this is a good idea, make sure to log those times separately so that your customer, when they ask you, hey, how much is this taking? You're like, well, it took me 8 hours of work that maybe we might have to throw away if it's a bad idea. And finally, be humble. I know that we are all in our heads, and sometimes we think we know what's fun and what isn't fun and everything like that. Maybe the bad idea that the customer is given is actually a great idea, and you don't realize this yet. So don't go ahead and think that just because you think it's a bad idea doesn't mean that it is a bad idea. And finally, subsection for be humble. Sometimes something isn't as important as you think it is. Sometimes there are some small little details that you're like, I'm going to die on this hill for this thing, but in reality, you can just do it, make the customer happy, and in the grand scheme of things, it might not actually matter too much. And yeah, that's everything I got for you right now. Thank you so much for being a lovely audience. That was working with customers. Any questions? You're allowed to ask a question up there. I promise I won't read it. Oh, over there. Excellent. Yes. What is the difference between a customer? Oh, sure. Is there a difference between a customer and a client? In this context, there isn't. Personally, I've used the word customer just because client is a pretty overloaded term in the game development world. Client can be like the game client, the server-client relationship, and networking, and all these different things. So I personally like to just not use client, just so that way customer is pretty disassociated from all that terminology. But in the grand scheme of things, some people call it clients, some people call it customers, same thing. Okay, so if I heard this correctly, at what point in the process do you feel like it's good to ask the customer what price they would put on that? On the are your services rendered? Is that on the game itself? Ooh. I might have to think about that because there's a lot of different reasons that a game might cost something and all those things, and I have not been involved in those conversations, unfortunately. As an engineer and as a designer, usually that's more above my pay grade, unfortunately. So sorry about that. Excellent. The question was, how do you keep in communications with the customer to make sure that they are up to date? This, I would say, is part of the setting expectations stage. There are different types of customers. Some customers are very gung-ho about the product and really want to be involved and will be there with you every step of the way. Some customers are going to be much more relaxed and like disappear for a month, and you're like, please answer your emails and we need you. So I would say, for the most part, at that point in time, you need to have, at the setting expectation stage, you need to have a real conversation with them about what type of customer they want to be. I've worked with certain types of customers that, the worst case scenario is a customer that both doesn't want to show up, and then when they do show up, they want to change the game a lot and have a lot of input. And that is just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion, in the past. So it's okay if a customer wants to be, move away from it, and it's okay if a customer wants to be involved, but they need to choose. Now, once you have talked to them about what type of customer they want to be, it is a matter of what is the most comfortable that everybody is. You can make it a Discord server and I know that I like to, in my Discord server, just always be on a voice chat in case somebody wants to show up and talk to me when I'm working on something. It's kind of like a virtual desk, essentially, for open work hours. So that's something I like to do. Calendar, email invites, just be like, hey, show up and all that stuff. So yeah. It really depends on what type of customer you're working with. Last question. Oh, shoot. Oh, no. Okay. Ooh, working with a difficult customer. You have hit my trap card. Yes, I had multiple extra slides, hoping that somebody would ask a question. So, the situation. Contracts make this a legal issue, and now we are entering the realm of lawyers, in which I must say that I cannot give you specific advice on the situation, but there is a case in which if you're working with a difficult customers, at the end of the day, you do have bills to pay, and you need to make a decision for you personally. How comfortable do you feel working with this customer? Whether some potential outcomes. You decide, you know what? I don't care if I don't get paid, I quit. Depending on your contract, that might be an option. Some contracts don't allow you to quit, and you're going to have to pay out of pocket for there. So again, depends on that. I'll bite the bullet and do all-nighters and do a Faustian bargain. You could do that and then decide to never work with this customer again. That is an option as well. If you're doing this more independently, if it's more of an internal problem with a company, then that's where you get HR involved and all these different things. And lastly, the go to court option, right? Of like, hey, I have proven to them that I have done what they've asked of me, and I want to be out of this, and I'm done. And if they're giving me a hard time, I'm going to take them to court. Yeah, I know it's not exactly what you want to hear with advice of how do I deal with difficult customers. Like, oh, it depends on those contracts and what the situation is, because that could be a whole presentation in of itself. In fact, if we have any video game lawyers / anybody else who wants to give a talk about this sort of stuff, talk to Ario.